You have wasted us our time and energy. I know that you plan to steal or destroy my time machine. You will tell me how it is to be done.
Oh, what are the Cybermen going to do, huh? Threaten his friends, put him in a pain machine, put a gun to his head, or, crush his hands until his bones crack and his fingers bleed? Damn, Mr. TARDIS Reviews is right. This story is awesome! And yet somehow, this scene and the rest of the story managed to retain a U certification as of the BBFC guidelines as of 2009.
Seriously? You're doing this now? Now? Humans are annoying.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to Colin Month here on the Whoniversals, and if you're coming from my retro channel watching my Doctor Who reviews in order, welcome to season 22, and today we're kicking off with one of my favourite stories of all time, Attack of the Cybermen, and I almost said Tomb of the Cybermen for some reason. I've already done that one. Season 5. Anyway, so season 22 kicks off with a cracking opener, as we get started with one of the best stories, in my opinion. I mean, it's not for everybody. This is pretty much my guilty pleasure, along with Delta and the Bannerman in season 24, but that one not as much. But I still love this one. The story of this one features the Cybermen attempting to change time with the destruction of Mondas in the 10th planet. They're trying to avert that by travelling back in time 1 year and just trying to avert the creation somehow, and they're trying to use this time ship to do it. It's a little bit complex when you start thinking about it. How are they doing this? But okay, but they plan to divert Halley's comet into Earth when it passes in 1986, which was what it was predicted, and it did so. I think that's when Chernobyl had its disaster. 1986 was indeed a disastrous year in some cases. In Doctor Who's case, it was off the air for 18 months from 85 to 86 and came back with Trial of a Time Lord. Yeah, we won't talk about that at the moment. We're trying to talk about something a little bit better. But that's the Cybermen's plan. They're trying to divert Halley's comet, and they're also they've got their base on Telos, where they've had their cyber control and tombs, as seen in season 5's The Tomb of the Cybermen, and they want to blow up the surface for scientific experiments, and they're using rejects to blow it up. This will also kill off the native Cryons, who are brand new creatures introduced for this story. So that's a plus, and they're invading the sewers. That's the invasion. Lots of continuity references here, not to mention the Doctor's TARDIS lands in Todder's Lane, an earthly child. And he mentions lots of companions' names, as well as a reference to this terrible Zodin, first mentioned in The Five Doctors, but never yet seen in any media form. Hashtag make Zodin the villain of the 60th anniversary film special. And yes, make it a film. Is that all the continuity references? Oh no, we've got one giant one throughout the main story that isn't the main plot. Okay. Alongside the Cybermen's plan, we've also got the return of Resurrection of the Daleks' Lytton, who didn't actually have that much to do in that story. He was kind of one of the Daleks' henchmen. But it wasn't that much to do, and he didn't really get that much interaction with the Doctor in that story. However, in this story, they seem to be very familiar with each other, so it seems like Lytton's learned a lot about him since then, and the Doctor's learned a little bit about him as well. So it's a bit odd. I think there should have been one story in between that should have had Lytton return and he and the Doctor actually come face to face, whether this is B5 or 6. But because there isn't really that much written in Resurrection of the Daleks, I'm going to have to rewatch it, but there isn't that much of him, and there's not much interaction between him and the Doctor. There might be one or two, but I don't remember it. Shows you how well that turned out then. So it really just turns out that they're just there to, just because maybe they liked Lytton and they wanted to round off his story because he didn't get much to do in the last one. Makes sense. I like listening to this story. He's a pretty dickish character, but it turns out he's actually not in it for his own selfish reasons. He's trying to help the Cryons, and he doesn't really want the Cybermen to win, does he? No. And there are points where he actually does show genuine emotion, like when his friends, spoiler alert, the Cyber Control claim that they have been killed. I actually see genuine emotion in his eyes. That doesn't mean he's not a prick throughout quite a bit of the rest of the story, but he's a prick that redeems himself later on, so he's forgiven. Also, fun fact, one of his friends is played by a guy who later goes on to be the prison warden in Alien 3. Another fun fact is that Russell is another one of these guys, is played by Terry Malloy, who is Davros, and we'll later see Davros later in this season. Spoiler alert, both these two characters, as well as the prison warden in Alien 3, die. And also this other guy called Payne. Yeah, he's the first one of the lot to die. And we've also got these two rejected Cybermen when the controlling system doesn't work out, but parts of their limbs have been turned into cybernetic organs, Stratton and Bates. And I think Stratton is the main one. I might be wrong. Might be Bates, who's the grumpy one. He looks a bit like a younger Christopher Eccleston. These two guys, they got a bit of a subplot where they're trying to escape. They're trying to get to Cyber Control and escape. There isn't a huge amount of them for the plot, apart from there be some additional characters, but you get to learn to like them and see a little bit of resistance from these rejected Cybermen conversions. But along with Griffiths, I think that is, the guy who goes on to be the warden in Alien 3, the actor. They all die at the end of part 2, near the end of part 2. So, yeah, lots of deaths in this story. Resurrection, which we were talking about a few minutes ago, that was apparently had the highest death count of the entire show. This one is trying to kill off as many main characters and supporting characters as it can. We've also got the Cryons, which are actually a pretty good race, and more of a feminine version compared to the masculine Cybermen. I don't know why I'm flying my arms around. And they're all really great. There's a couple of them who get centre stage. I was about to say there's a couple of them who die. That's true. One of them does. Flask. She helps the Doctor. She gets killed by the thrown out of a cold room into a warm corridor by the Cybermen. As the Cryons can't live above freezing. They have to can only survive lower than freezing. And 10 degrees causes this little stuff to get very unfriendly, and 15 and it blows up, so that's good for the Doctor when he's trying to escape. There's also a few others who, like Rost, I believe, or Rost. She helps Perry along with another one who is a little bit more. I think that other one is a little younger and a bit more self-centered. Well, not self-centered. It's a bit more stubborn and a little bit more full of herself. I think that's the vibes I get from her. That's fine. That's personalities for you. And then there's this other one who communicates on the communicator at one point. And now for the main characters, the Sixth Doctor. Well, after his brash, abrasive attitude from the Twin Dilemma, he's a bit more mellowed, he's a bit more nicer. He's still a little unstable and still a bit grumpy in some places. However, he does go for a bit of a character change throughout the story. Well, not character change, character development, as he's shown to actually have emotion and care for Lytton at the end when he realises the truth. And he's saddened at his death. Spoiler alert, Lytton also dies. So we can see the Doctor's grumpy attitude, as we see in Six's Doctor carry on, but we also see a bit of a more caring side, a more nicer side. He's definitely a much more mellowed character since Twin Dilemma. As for Perry, Nicola Bryant does a great performance as always. Perry doesn't get a huge amount to do in the first episode. She's just running around looking nice. And she does have a few moments where she's pointing guns at people who are pretty much annoying her and the Doctor, like these two police officers from Resurrection of the Daleks who go along with Lytton. They're still walking around. Doctor knocks out one of them, Perry holds a gun at the other one, whilst the Doctor handcuffs him to the bar. He then escapes, probably. And later, Perry then... later in that episode, Perry holds a gun up at Russell, and the Doctor tells her to shoot him, which, of course, he doesn't really want her to shoot him. He's just trying to get Russell to speak. But Perry doesn't seem to be in the plan, so... And later, in part 2, she's not really doing that much apart from escaping the Cybermen and being with she's hanging out with the Cryons for most of the episode. She's not really in much danger, but she gets to move that side of the story along a little bit. As for the Cybermen, well, they're great. The Cyber Leader is back and he's in full force. I know it's probably another Cyber Leader, but he's still really great, and David Banks does a great performance, both visually and audioly. It'd be great if he could come back for Big Finish when they reuse these cyber designs. The Cyber Lieutenant is also there, but I keep forgetting which one's which because he's just a normal Cyberman who's just promoted to Lieutenant. Yeah, it could have been nice if he had some sort of markings on him to note he's the Cyber Lieutenant. There's also this stealth Cyberman who's just there, wandering around the sewers, and he appears in the TARDIS at one point, but that's about it. There isn't really much of a point to this stealth Cyberman. If there wasn't anything for it to do, then why was it here? It's a bit like the classic Daleks in the Sign of the Daleks. Meanwhile, a special design that did get to do stuff with the Daleks, you got the Special Weapons Dalek, that got a bit to do in Remembrance Part 4, that was cool. Meanwhile, we've also got the Cyber Controller, who's now the main villain of this story, and as we see on the cover, along with a Cryon, I think that might be the Stealth Cyberman there, to be honest. He's a blacky, dark grey Cyberman compared to the standard one. The Cyber Controller, who also last appeared in Tomb of the Cybermen, is looking a bit different. For starters, his bulging head, which some people have taken to say looks like a penis, it does have a little bit of, I think, at least on the cover, it looks like there's a bit of blood streams, blood veins through it, so indicating there's a brain. But to be fair, you can't really see it that well, unlike on the one in Tomb or in Age of Steel, or the Cyber Leader ones from the next Doctor onwards. But yes, somehow the Cyber Leaders get allowed to show off their brains as well, possibly even more than the Cyber Controllers. Lays it down in a new series line. Anyway, and get the black face thing. But this Cyber Controller isn't, besides a bulging head and no handlebars, this Cyber Controller just looks very much like the other ones. It doesn't look like the Tomb of the Cybermen's one. It had the big brain and it didn't have as much stuff on its main chest. Meanwhile, the Cyber Controller in the new series, whilst it did have handles, it was showing its brain and its eyes were glowing. It also sat on a really nice throne for a bit. I guess they didn't really want to play with the cyber design that much for him, but it is the weakest Cyber Controller design, to be fair. This one just feels like they've stretched one of the Cybermen's heads out and removed its handlebars, and that's about it. So, yeah, but the Cyber Controller does a good job, but I find the Cyber Leader a bit more of a better villain, and it's a shame that the Cyber Controller doesn't quite live up to that standard. Same for him not being as great as he was in Tomb of the Cybermen, and he's supposedly the same one. He manages to survive. So despite a complex story, it's actually quite simple to follow, and you get revelations as you go along. And it's really, really fun and really enjoyable to watch. You get some great moments. You also get some great moments of horror when the rogue Cybermen burst through their teams, and one of them punches another Cyberman's head off by accident. Another one is shot down by Cryon, saving Perry. And there are some other great moments involving the other Cybermen. There's quite a few great action scenes, like the Cryons versus Cybermen battle near the end, and the Doctor taking on the Cyber Leader, Cyber Controller, and a couple of other Cybermen in Cyber Control at the very end. And there is quite a bit of violence. Something that would not pass at a U rating if it was up to me certificating this story under the BBFC guidelines of 2019. However, under the 2009 guidelines, it was suitable for you. It will probably be raised to PG for the Blu-ray. Probably. If not, then it'll be due to extras. But the disc will say PG, so that's the start. But like Mr. TARDIS Review says in his review, it's not violence for violence sake. It's actually there to serve a purpose to the plot. It shows the Cybermen's strength, and it shows how far they'll go to achieve their plan, and also shows the Cryon's resistance, as well as that of the strength of Stratton and Bates, and Litton's determination, and even the Doctor trying to be a hero even shows that at the end. I would say season 22 has quite a lot of violence that's there for the story, and it's not there for the sake of it. It helps to give a bit more of a dangerous or scary feel, quite a dangerous feel, and also the same with the horror. It's also there for the story's purposes. All the nasty stuff you see in Vengeance on Varos, almost all the nasty stuff in Vengeance on Varos, like the different ways of they execute or torture prisoners, that's part of the story. Two Doctors, and the massacre on the ship, on the base, although we don't see most of it, that's part of its story. And Revelation of the Daleks. There's quite a bit of brutal violence in that, but quite a bit of it is for the story as well. And that one in particular also has quite a lot of horror as well. There are times when in the season that there is unnecessary violence, like when the Doctor throws two guards into a vat of acid instead of just sneaking out. And also when in Two Doctors, when Shockeye stabs Oscar just because he's whining and making him cross. And then the Doctor then kills Shockeye with some cyanide. Pretty brutal. Admittedly, the Fourth Doctor also killed Solon, Dr. Solon, or Solomon, in the brain of Morbius with cyanide, but that was passed through the vents. This time, Two Doctors, it was right up against the face. So there was a bit of unnecessary killing and violence in season 22, but there was plenty that was important for their stories, and this story in particular has some of that. It's just because it's for the sake of it, but violence because it's needed for the story. Something that stories like Two Doctors wouldn't always follow the same format for, but there are points. But you can tell why lots of people were unhappy with it. This was one of the reasons why the show was almost cancelled / put on hiatus for 18 months. I almost said 17 for some reason. So to conclude, Attack of the Cybermen is a really fun, really entertaining, and really enjoyable start for Doctor Who Season 22. It is a bit graphically violent, and it really ought to not be rated U. It really should be a PG at lowest. Only Mark Durrani manages to get away with a U rating this season. But despite that, the story is great, the characters are great, the Cybermen are at full strength, you get quite a lot of fun, the production is great, the effects are really great, and it's just a really fun and enjoyable story. So I'm going to give Attack of the Cybermen a 10 out of 10. Really great, really enjoyable, and really entertaining, and it's great fun. Those who aren't so keen on it, please let me know what it is you aren't so keen on, minus the violence, because I can understand that. This is one of my guilty pleasures, and it's it's probably my favourite guilty pleasure, as it's managed to get into the top 10 list of my favourite Doctor Who stories of all time. So that's it from me, and that's it from Attack of the Cybermen. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.